Precis bara några hundra meter från parlamentet i det politiska maktcentrat i London som ju står i världens blickfång idag, denna dramatiska fredag dagen efter folkomröstningen i Storbritannien när britterna har bestämt att man ska lämna den Europeiska unionen. Ni kan inte se allt som jag ser här nu, men vi står på en liten gräsplätt in till parlamentet där det är smockfullt med journalister både från brittiska medier men också från hela världen. Det här är såklart en stor historia även för internationella medier. Hörrni, vi ska prata med två av dem som jobbar för just internationella medier. Osman Ayfara som är programledare på Al Jazeera och Mohammed El-Meshad som är journalist på Al Arabi TV. Good afternoon to you both. Well, a very dramatic day here in the UK today. What do you make of today's events? What's been most surprising so far, would you say?
The result, I think, was a little bit surprising. I think a lot of people thought eventually it will be for Remain. Even I think just after the polls were closed, Nigel Farage was talking in that sort of direction, and he said, whatever happens, I consider myself to have won. We will win this war. But then as the results started coming, we realized it was going to be Leave. I think deep down even the Leave campaign themselves were kind of surprised.
And from just after the polling stations closed yesterday, it seemed like it was going to be a victory for the Remain side, and then it changed pretty swiftly. What conclusions can we draw from this, that all of a sudden it just changed?
I mean, from the people that I've been talking to, the 350 million a week was resonating. There are certain arguments that were really hitting home. For people who are afraid of immigration, they were speaking of, that's obviously what attracted them. For those who are afraid that, or who are upset that the government was decreasing some of its funding for certain services, that's what got them that this money would go towards them. So, I mean, us in London, we'd always feel it would be Remain because London is obviously 100% pretty much not 100%, but it's, very heavily pro-Remain. Outside, I just don't think that there was enough of a conception of what will happen. I mean, we were just talking about how the Leave camp did not believe that that's what they would happen. I think they were more aiming for something so high that whatever gains they make would be high enough that they could continue with their campaigning. I just don't think that there was enough planning, preparation, or conception on either side of what the real sense, from the grassroots perspective would be. And it just so happened that it turned to the direction of leaving.
So Nigel Farage, he's claimed victory. David Cameron has resigned. We've heard the Scottish First Minister saying that they will now prepare for yet another referendum on Scottish independence, and there's also similar opinions in Northern Ireland. Would you say the UK is a shattered country today?
Well, you never know what happens. I think everyone is going to learn a lot from what happened. Most members of parliament were pro-Remain. The big parties, the big party leaders were all pro-Remain. David Cameron, Jeremy Corbyn, Tim Farron, the Green Party, the Bank of England, Mark Carney, Britain's allies in the world, France, Germany, the United States, but it seems that the majority of the British people didn't listen to all of these people, and someone like Michael Gove said we had enough of experts, so they didn't listen to the experts and they listened to this kind of populist speech, and they knew if they were to choose Leave, that could have triggered another referendum in Scotland. You never know what happens with Northern Ireland. Spain is trying to get Gibraltar back, but it seems they were kind of fed up and they wanted to get what they see as their sovereignty back.
And what about the reactions from the rest of the world? What do you make of that? Middle East, for instance, where you have your biggest audience.
I think from one perspective, there is something constant throughout, is that the establishment was living in a false, or what turned out to be such a false sense of security, that things won't change, that what they need to do in order to maintain the status quo is not that much. They just need to do a bit of campaigning, that in the end they're secure in where they are. The rest of the world viewed perhaps Great Britain as a bastion of, or somewhere where there's a bit of political stability, where people would feel safe putting their investments here, especially the Middle East. You have, at least from the Gulf alone, $130 billion of investments in the UK, probably a bit more than that when you include the rest of the Middle East. So there is this sense of what will happen to our investments, especially in the financial sector, where you have already, we'll see what happens on Monday when the stock markets open up, but you already have the pound devaluating, you already have the euro devaluating. London has been able to become the major financial hub in Europe, if not one of the top 3 in the world. So investors will definitely be wondering how that will affect them, but I think for the most part it's this sense, this idea that, wait a minute, this isn't the place that we thought it was, in terms of stability, in terms of where the entire population's at.
I've heard quite a lot of people saying today that they are shocked, they are absolutely heartbroken. It's been more those kind of reactions, I think, than from the other side, people who have sort of celebrated on social media and so on, praising the Independence Day for this country and so on. Do you have the same impression, or how would you describe the...
Are we talking about the Middle East?
No, we're talking about here in the UK. Yeah. How would you describe the British public's reaction after this referendum to your viewers?
I think at the end of the day, if you noticed, apart maybe from Nigel Farage, all the politicians, they had a somber mood in the way they spoke. They realized that at least half of the population voted for Remain. They realized that they must pay attention to this and they must unite the nation, if you like. And those who were for Leave in the Conservative Party said they wanted David Cameron to continue for a bit. I don't think there was a chance of doing that. And mostly the older generation voted for Leave, the vast majority of them, and the younger ones voted for Remain. So it seems like the older ones decided the future for the younger ones, which is very interesting. Do you see a lot of celebration around? I don't think you see people celebrating a lot. It's quiet, and I think both sides are kind of worried, especially when it comes to the economy, whether this will be a temporary shock that will be absorbed, or will it have a long-term consequences.
So we're fast approaching the evening on the first day after this referendum. What do you think is going to happen during the rest of the day now?
Well, for the rest of the day we'll have, further to this question, we have this the Leave camp understanding that they didn't plan for this. They didn't. Nigel Farage is probably happy because he has been ostracized already from the bulk of the Leave camp. He will not bear the burden of planning the way forward. David Cameron stepped down, saying he can't continue, he can't carry the country towards this process. Ostensibly, he's thinking that someone from the Leave camp will be the person to do this. So now the Leave camp must, I'm sure it's not as simple as them choosing who David Cameron's successor will be, but whoever will have to be someone who understands all of the ramifications. So this first day is a day of getting over the shock of what happened for both sides, which is why I think we don't see celebrations, and why we don't see, and why we do see a lot of shocked faces that aren't sure what will happen. So I think this is basically what the rest of the day will be like, trying to make sense of it. I just came back from an interview at the minister's office in government, and I was asking everyone in that office, were you prepared for this? And they were just saying, listen, like, if you're shocked, like, we're doubly as shocked, like, we're all shocked.
Yeah.
And but we'll go on with our work as normal. They didn't seem quite sure what's going to happen, to be honest. You know.
Yeah, I think things are happening very quickly. Maybe we didn't expect David Cameron's resignation to be as quickly as this. I think members of every party will be talking to each other. When it comes to the Conservative Party, I think he will probably talk to people like Boris Johnson and Michael Gove, and they will want a Brexit government. I don't know if they will have a reshuffle now or not, but I think Cameron will do whatever they want. And obviously now the competition, if you like, has started for the leadership of the Conservative Party, who will take on the negotiations, which will be a very tough one with the European Union.
Yeah, because that is one of the main questions now, at least here in the UK. What will happen now when David Cameron has resigned? Who do you think is going to be the main competitors for the post as leader of the Tory party and Prime Minister?
I think almost, well, let's say very likely to be Boris Johnson, put it that way.
And Boris has been priming himself for this for the past few years. He hasn't made any gaffes recently. He's been brushing his hair. You know, it looks like
he had his eyes on 10 Downing Street, and I think he'll get it. I think he will be the next Prime Minister.
Exciting to see what happens. Thank you so much for your thoughts on all the events after this referendum. Alltså Osman Aifara från Al Jazeera och Mohammed El-Meshad från Al Arabi TV som där gav oss sina funderingar kring det som har hänt här under det senaste dygnet. Och framförallt då beskedet som kom under morgonen, tidig morgon, att Storbritannien nu då har röstat för att lämna den Europeiska unionen.